Good afternoon, students. Today we study Michelson and Stahl experiment. In the last lecture, we discussed about the semi-conservative mode of replication in DNA, which was proposed by Watson and Crick. The hypothesis of Watson and Crick was experimentally proved by Matthew Michelson and Franklin Stahl in 1958. In their experiment, they used E. coli bacteria and isotopes of nitrogen. Here they used two types of isotopes of nitrogen. One is N14, which is light isotope of nitrogen, and it has a less density. The second type is N15, which is heavy isotope of nitrogen, and it is more dense as compared to N14. In this experiment, they used equilibrium density gradient centrifugation technique. What does it mean? Here they separated or centrifuged DNA on the basis of density, and for this purpose they used a solution of cesium chloride. After centrifugation, they obtained equilibrium density gradient bands of DNA. Let us see the experiment of Michelson and Stahl. In the first step, they grew E. coli bacteria in a medium containing N14 nitrogen. This N14 isotope of nitrogen is commonly found in the surrounding, and it is present in the normal DNA. Further, they isolated DNA from the E. coli bacteria and centrifuged in the cesium chloride solution. N14 nitrogen is light nitrogen, that's why the DNA got accumulated in the upper region of the solution. Here they recorded the position of the band which was formed by the N14 type of DNA, and they called it as a light band. Further, they transferred these bacteria into a medium containing N15 nitrogen. This N15 isotope is heavy isotope of nitrogen. Here they allowed these bacteria to grow or to replicate for several generations. So the bacteria replicated for number of times. As a result, the parental N14 DNA was completely replaced by the N15 DNA. Further, they isolated DNA, same way centrifuged in cesium chloride solution. As the N15 isotope is heavier, so the DNA sinks down, and near the bottom of the solution, the band was formed. They recorded the position of the band which was formed by this N15 type of DNA and called it as a heavy band. Further, the E. coli bacteria containing N15 type of DNA were grew in a medium containing N14 type of nitrogen. Here they grew this E. coli bacteria for one generation. For completing one replication cycle, E. coli bacteria needs 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, they isolated DNA and separated DNA by a centrifugation technique. And here after centrifugation, they obtained band at the intermediate place. That means in between the heavy band and the lighter band. And they termed it as a hybrid band, where the DNA contained one N14 type of strand and one N15 type of strand. According to the semi-conservative mode of replication, the parental strand is retained during synthesis of new strand. The same way here, they got the one parental strand, and that was N15, and the newly synthesized strand was N14, which was synthesized by using the N14 nitrogen from the medium. Further, they allowed these bacteria to grow in the same medium for one more generation, and here they obtained the second generation. Here after second generation, they isolated DNA, centrifuged DNA in a cesium chloride, and here they obtained the two types of bands, one at the position of N14, N15, that is hybrid band, and another at the position of N14, N14, that is light band, and which indicated that here the hybrid strand or hybrid DNA separated and the 4 template strands were formed, and on these 4 separated template strands, new strands were developed by using the N14 nitrogen which was present in the medium. And from this they concluded that, or they clearly proved that DNA replication is a semi-conservative process. Okay, here we have finished the Michelson and Stahl experiment. Now we see the next subtopic, that is protein synthesis. Proteins are important biomolecules and which are also called as building blocks. Majority of the enzymes and hormones are made up of proteins. Hope you remember, protein synthesis is a heterocatalytic function of DNA. So DNA plays important role in protein synthesis. This protein synthesis includes 2 sub-processes, and which are transcription and translation. First we see what is transcription. The process of copying of genetic information from one template strand of DNA into a single stranded RNA transcript is termed as transcription. Means genetic information of only one strand of DNA is copied into RNA, or simply you can say the synthesis of messenger RNA from DNA is transcription. In case of eukaryotes, this DNA is present inside the nucleus. That's why in eukaryotes the transcription occurs within the nucleus. Okay. Now the second sub process is translation, where this messenger RNA, it carries the information which is copied from DNA and it translates that copied information to ribosomes which are present inside the cytoplasm. And this translation of the genetic information from messenger RNA to ribosomes for the synthesis of protein is termed as a translation. Ribosomes are present inside the cytoplasm. That's why in case of eukaryotes, the translation occurs in the cytoplasm. That means in eukaryotes, transcription takes place inside the nucleus while translation occurs inside the cytoplasm. But in case of prokaryotes, DNA is present inside the cytoplasm. That's why transcription and translation both takes place within the cytoplasm. The transcription process is catalyzed by enzyme called DNA dependent RNA polymerase. Okay, and here the unidirectional flow of information from DNA to messenger RNA and then from messenger RNA to ribosomes for the synthesis of protein is termed as a central dogma. This central dogma was postulated by Francis Crick in 1958. In many viruses, RNA acts as a genetic material. In such viruses, RNA directly doesn't take part in protein synthesis. First, this RNA synthesizes DNA and that DNA further undergo a process of transcription, translation, and then protein synthesis is done. That's why this transcription is called as reverse transcription. From messenger RNA, first DNA develops. That's why called reverse transcription. And this reverse transcription is found in the viruses which are termed as retroviruses. And the concept of central dogma in retroviruses is given by Temin and Baltimore in 1970. This is about the introduction of protein synthesis. Now you watch the 3D video of protein synthesis. This protein synthesis is a quite difficult to understand, but it's very interesting process. So first you watch this video, and in the next lecture, we discuss this protein synthesis in detail.
Here is a cell, the basic unit of all living tissue. In most human cells, there is a structure called the nucleus. The nucleus contains the genome. In humans, the genome is split between 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each chromosome contains a long strand of DNA, tightly packaged around proteins called histones. Within the DNA are sections called genes. These genes contain the instructions for making proteins. When a gene is switched on, an enzyme called RNA polymerase attaches to the start of the gene. It moves along the DNA, making a strand of messenger RNA out of free bases in the nucleus. The DNA code determines the order in which the free bases are added to the messenger RNA. This process is called transcription. Before the messenger RNA can be used as a template for the production of proteins, it needs to be processed. This involves removing and adding sections of RNA. The messenger RNA then moves out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Protein factories in the cytoplasm, called ribosomes, bind to the messenger RNA. The ribosome reads the code in the messenger RNA to produce a chain made up of amino acids. There are 20 different types of amino acid. Transfer RNA molecules carry the amino acids to the ribosome. The messenger RNA is read 3 bases at a time. As each triplet is read, a transfer RNA delivers the corresponding amino acid. This is added to a growing chain of amino acids. Once the last amino acid has been added, the chain folds into a complex 3D shape to form the protein.